upon a time, I had a job writing TV. Every day I went to work. One day I decided I wanted to do something else. Because of that, I went to medical school. Because of that, I became a doctor. Until finally I got a job working as a doctor. Ever since that day, I get to be a doctor. Pretty good, right?
Yes. Welcome to A Life Worth Working, a podcast about how we get to the soul of work.
We're your hosts, Michelle Weise and Dana Walsh. I'm an education and workforce strategist, and Dana is a senior pastor at a progressive church.
And as always, we love hearing your comments, questions, and thoughts. So please know you can email us anytime at hello@alifeworthworking.com.
In this episode, we chat with Jacob Lentz, who is a former comedy writer turned emergency room doctor. We met in college, and we were part of a larger group of friends who would eat lunch and dinner together most days. Jake was a part of the Harvard Lampoon, the famed comedy magazine that churned out famous folks such as Conan O'Brien and Walter Isaacson.
I went to college and I think I really liked comedy, and I still do. And I just thought that I could probably do this well enough to make a living, and I would not have to kind of go through the grind of a lot of other jobs. The one thing I felt pretty strongly about pretty quickly was that I didn't want to do a lot of jobs that people did. I knew like wearing a tie to work and going to a meeting and everyone just agreeing that someone's in charge. And if we could all just agree that Larry's in charge, everything will be fine. We just do what Larry says and things will work out. I think I always had the comedian or the comedy writer's impulse that was just so funny that we all agree that one person's in charge. If everyone just does what Sally says, we'll all get to go home. We'll eat dinner. We'll come back. We'll do it tomorrow. Things will be okay. No one panic. Sally's going to tell us what to do. In college, we always talked about like the concept of like the jester.
Right.
Like, that's what the jester was, the one character in like the court who could like, actually say the true thing to the king, right? Like that. So that just always seems so funny to me. Like, I'm going to wear this outfit every day. I'm going to go to this building. And I don't really know what we're doing, but we all agree that Sally knows what she's doing. It's going to be okay every day. And it just seemed funny to me. Like, and I was just like, I can't do that. Like, I'll get fired. Like, I will 100% get fired. There's no way that goes well for me.
Even as a young man, Jake could see through the oddities of a normal 9-to-5 job, and his comedy impulse wouldn't let it go.
Now, I had like a summer internship after our sophomore year, and it was in like a bank type trading thing, because I was like studying economics. Maybe I should just do that. I'll just be one of those people who does stuff with money or whatever.
Plus, everyone was getting pressured to do that kind of work.
Yeah, everyone was getting pressured to like do a thing where you move money around. No one really knows what it means, but somehow you end up with more money. And like, I hated it. I would get in trouble because I would joke around and I would take notes for meetings and I would put jokes in the notes, and like my boss would yell at me. I just was like, I can't do it. So I just thought I'll move to LA and try to get into TV writing.
Jake worked for various TV shows and was making a good living writing for late-night host Jimmy Kimmel when he experienced his first writer's strike in 2007 to 2008. Suddenly, he wasn't allowed to work. The capriciousness of the business became super clear, and he was struck by the fact that he had no control over his own work life. Jake didn't want to be in a position like that again, and so he began thinking about doing something else.
With some prompting from his brother-in-law, who was just starting medical school, he began entertaining the idea of going to med school. He learned the precise courses he would need to take to meet the admissions requirements, and he started taking some courses at UCLA's Extension School. Thankfully, Jake found he was able to fit in early morning physics classes and late evening chemistry labs around his TV writing schedule.
While he prepared to apply to med school, he also volunteered in the emergency room of a local hospital to see what that was like. And as you can imagine, Jake's comedic impulse was alive and well.
I volunteered here. I have no idea what's going on. What are they all doing? I don't know what any of these things, what's happening. And my job was like, just bring the patient a sandwich. And I was like, I can do that. But none of it made sense. Like, there's a lot of people on the phone. The nurses kind of go in the room, then they come out. It felt like nothing was happening. And I just figured I just don't understand what's going on. Like it's probably not boring, and I just don't understand it. So I'm just going to plow ahead. I'm still going to go for it. And then I applied for med school.
When Jake finally did make it into medical school, he shared the news with his colleagues, and the response was mixed for sure.
I found out later that none of my friends who work in TV, they all thought I was either lying or they were, oh, good luck. Or they thought I was a crazy person. Yeah, he's not doing that. Like he's definitely going to stop doing that. He'll be back. The only person who was like very generous and kind the whole time was Jimmy. Jimmy was like, that's great. I think it's great. You should do that. That's
Even though the urologist made a hard sell to Jake to join their specialty, he decided to go into emergency medicine.
They really tried to recruit me into urology because they're like, we're the funny doctors. They're like, we have a lot of jokes. You would really blend in. And I was like,
a lot of material.
And I was like, does seem like a great job with, you make a lot of money.
There was also something aspirational in his choice of emergency medicine.
I think the thing about emergency medicine was like, that's kind of how I conceived of what a doctor is, that you have to kind of be able to do whatever and handle everything. It's always been an important thing for me to hold it together. And I haven't always held it together in my life or in situations, but that's always been a very high value to me, that like you don't panic. And I felt that's a lot of what emergency medicine is. You don't panic. You start making decisions, and you don't try to pawn it off on someone else. You try to make decisions with limited information.
Oh, one thing we didn't mention is that while Jake was transforming from a comedy writer into a medical student, he also decided that med school would be a prime time to join the Navy Reserves.
And it was, as he put it, a real misery. He was already exhausted from medical school, which is hard enough. And then he would have to go every weekend to San Diego for training. These were long stretches of time with no break, no time to breathe.
Going to medical school at the age of 33, joining the Navy at the age of 32 it's very humbling, right? Like you're starting at zero. I really had to humble myself. And there were years of just having no money, and then also being at the true bottom of the heap, being absolutely the low person on the ladder. And I think that was really hard, but good for me. I got very good at asking myself, like, why are you feeling this way? And does that matter? Getting talked down to when you're like a medical student by like a 27-year-old, like second-year resident who's going to give you some feedback. I might have reacted much more poorly in a different version of things, but I think I got really good at just asking myself, like, why do you feel that way? And do you care? It doesn't matter.
For Jake, it was all doable and achievable because of the people he was surrounded by.
It's the people. It's always the people. It's who you're eating with. Go to 7-Eleven and get a bag of potato chips. It's the people.
Yes.
That's all that matters. And people join the military for a million different reasons, but I like a lot of them. They're just good people, and they're fun to be around, and they're always interesting. I have a friend from Kansas. He's really couldn't afford college, and he just didn't want to make his parents take out loans. So he enlisted in the Air Force, and he was at the airport, getting on the plane to fly to Texas for basic training. I was like, what am I doing? All these things, everything you do, every new thing is scary, always. Anyone who says it's not is probably just fooling themselves. Like, everything new is scary to me. It really is. I've always been terrified doing everything I've had to do. I've been I'm sick to my stomach. Like, new things are super scary, and you're like, I can't. Why could I do that? And then he was like, and I went and I joined the Air Force, and he was like, I went to Iraq a couple times, sat on an air base, got out, used the GI Bill, went to college, got a PhD in forestry studies. He's like a premier expert working for the United States Forest Service on imaging forests with drones. And he always talks about, I'm just glad I got on that plane. And I think that's one thing I really respect about the military. It does open up the aperture of what you do. Because like everything everyone does, they think it's going to be something. It's totally different. Medicine is totally different than what I thought. The military is totally different than what I thought. TV is totally different than what I thought. Yeah. It always is that way, in my experience. But yeah, you just gotta get on a plane.
I love it. If this series of career pivots seems hard to fathom, Jake explained that his ability to pivot in this way was because he was so experienced in failure from his work in TV that none of this seemed daunting.
When people have asked me about different things in the past, you have to understand that Hollywood is in many ways like a great preparation for other stuff because you fail so much. Like so much of it is just, you just fail. You go to a meeting, you don't get hired, you never get hired, they never buy the pitch. It's just, you just get used to like things not working out. So I think you can interpret that however you want, but for me, it was just, like I'll just try and see what happens. It just seemed more compelling.
Jake, I see so much curiosity in your story. And are you a naturally curious person, or is curiosity a practice for you?
That's a great question. I think I'm interested in things and like I like to learn about things, but I think you have to teach people to be curious. And I think one thing that really concerns me is I feel the temptation of being uncurious, of not being curious enough to read deeply or think deeply or really sit down and just read a book is so great nowadays. One thing I love about my job is you get to talk to people, right? So it's broadened my aperture of like what kind of stuff people are up to. I'm talking to people and I'm like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I do laser etching on buildings. And I don't know anything about that. Tell me more. So I get to talk to people and it's really interesting hearing all these different things like operate cranes and people crazy stuff. I couldn't do that, but it's so interesting. It's given me such a regard for people who have an actual skill set that I know I would fail with. You know, whatever the Greek concept of like the good life is, that's false, right? There's so many things out there that people are doing that are meaningful and useful and important. And I just think we need to get people more curious about it.
One of the most powerful revelations to Jake has been the vulnerability of the people he engages with at work. When you're in an ER, you're obviously not there for a good reason. And that's also what engages Jake so concretely in the human condition.
That's one thing I've really liked about medicine is there's no nonsense.
Right.
When you're dealing with a patient, a lot of people's airs and stuff it all goes away. It's just you and the patient and a problem. And you're really meeting people often when they're having a really bad day, right? Like it's like no one's having a good day in the ER. It's the best day I've had in a while. Check to the ER with chest pain, But there's an honesty there. The pomposity and all that stuff just goes away. You just kind of meet people where they're at.
Even when Jake is sharing something so profound about people at their worst, he still makes you want to laugh. And what I loved about Jake is he hated the playbook from the beginning. That made me laugh so hard, where he just saw right through it, right? I do not want to be Larry. I do not want to just be putting on a suit and moving money around. And he just breaks it all down.
And I thought it was so funny because he described being in an ER as a volunteer for the first time and just being totally confused. No idea what was going on.
Yes.
And it's so interesting that that's what he pursued.
Yes.
And that's what he's excelling at.
Right.
Because I think he was curious to figure out what in the world is going on and how do I engage versus just bringing this guy a sandwich.
Yes. And I love that because I hope other people hear that and think, okay, it doesn't need to be this burning bush moment where I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I want to do. And he said how curiosity was something he had to cultivate and practice, but he really leaned into that because he also is willing to hold space for ambiguity, which most of us hate, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we like the playbook, because it's certainty and it's laid out there. But Jake was willing to sit with that for a little while and listen to that voice of curiosity and lean into that.
There's a beautiful thinker named John Seely Brown, who is chief scientist of Xerox Corporation, who explains that we as humans have moved from the age of enlightenment to the age of entanglement. He says everything that really matters in a problem is now entangled with everything else. Each has layer after layer of consequences in different ways. There's some sense that understanding these entanglements requires empathy, getting a feeling for the problem and the people involved in a fairly robust way. Then the real learning question is, how do you play with entanglement?
I love the posing of that question. How do you play with entanglement? And he recommends that in this kind of topsy-turvy, or what he calls a whitewater world, because everything is changing so rapidly, he says that the skill that matters most is a sense of authenticity. And he goes on to say that you could only gain that authenticity from doing real things. He says you get that in the rough, so to speak, and with people whom you respect, that you could learn with and from. The further removed from stasis we are, the less and less formal training matters, and the more the ability to play with a context and then understand how you are learning from it and with it.
I think what Jake has learned over time is how to play with context and learn from it and with it. Of course, Jake would never be the one to assert something like that. Instead, this is more what Jake ended with.
Delete it.
No.
Right into the trash can.
Sorry, Jake, not going to happen. Your thoughts on failure, resilience, and curiosity help us understand the sharp and widely divergent pivots that remain open to us no matter where we are on our career paths.
She's Dana Walsh.
And she's Michelle Weise.
This has been another episode of A Life Worth Working.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends and loved ones who may also be searching for purpose and meaning in their work lives, or what we call the soul of work.